A good chance you've never heard of the health problem that we're going to deal with right now, and it's called postpartum depression, but we're talking about it specifically this morning in men.
Yeah, so a recent study and the American Medical Association estimate that about 10% of dads are confronted with this.
So joining us now is an authority on the problem, psychologist Dan Singley of the Center for Men's Excellence, and he's waking up early in San Diego to talk about this. So Dr. Singley, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
If Doctor, 10% of dads have it, how come we've heard so little about it? 10% in the grand scheme of the population is a pretty large number.
Yeah, it's a huge number from a public mental health perspective. I think in large part, we don't hear as much about it because we think about perinatal and postpartum mental health as being women's issues, which of course they are and very important ones, whereas we tend to think of the early fatherhood experience as that stereotypical protect, provide. And the stigma against mental health and talking about mental health is certainly alive and well, and it just doesn't get that much bandwidth out there in the popular media when we're thinking about men and depression and anxiety.
Yeah, talking about stigma, you actually prefer the term perinatal to postpartum because it can occur during pregnancy as well as after. So what are the symptoms men experience and their partner should be aware of? Because this is a tough balance, right? Because women are dealing with having a child, trying to recoup from that. Some are nursing and all of that. And then now you have your partner with this. That can create a lot of tension in the home.
Correct. And it's so important what you said. It does really span from conception to about a year or so postpartum, where we're looking for not just depression, but also anxiety and not just some stress. We're also looking for obsessive compulsive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, even PTSD. Some of the key signs that we're looking for when we're talking about depression, it can show up in men a little bit differently than how we usually think about depression. So instead of just being weepy and can't get out of bed and suicidal and in the corner, you look for an irritable, even a rageful presentation, or being pretty isolated or withdrawn, even if you're around people, just not engaging. Taking some of those psychological, emotional expressions like depression and somaticizing them. So it's stomach issues, it's muscle tensions, it's headaches, and of course, an increase in drinking or drugs or really any sort of what we call dopaminergic behaviors, which can include video gaming.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because I was talking to some of my friends about this and who have recently become fathers who said, yeah, there's certainly an anxiety, but you have a child in your home, right? So, and a baby. So how do you know what is actually causing some of the things you're describing right there? Is it biological? Is there a hormonal component for men?
It's very much a biological, psychological, social, environmental. Several studies have shown that there is a biological component, that men's changes in hormones around the birth of their babies can contribute to experience of depression, but it's a mistake to reduce it to just that. Other key contributors are if their partner is depressed. That's actually the #1 predictor of men, of new dads developing it. The state of their relationship, the couple's relationship, the new parents' relationship is so central to both of their mental health. And of course, a pre-existing history if the dad has had depression or significant anxiety issues previously.
Can it become the same kind of dangerous postpartum psychosis that sometimes occurs in women? Can we see this in men?
That's a great question. It goes back to the first one you asked, why we don't hear about it as much. There's not much research on this. So generally not in the same way or as much as it would happen with women. And so the danger factor, the lethality tends not to be there, although there are some documented cases in which fathers have taken their own lives, their infants' lives, and so forth. We don't tend to look at it as psychosis, but the danger of harm to self or harm to others is certainly there in some cases.
So what are the best ways to treat it then, right? What are the best ways to treat this problem in men? Because men sometimes might say, well, I'll just get through it. I'll find, you know, I'll get over it.
Yeah, it's all good. I just let it roll off my back. First is ask the question. Like, don't be afraid to say, hey, Dad, how are you? Pause. Hey, how are you really doing? Like, that's not rocket science, but it is a very, very important first step. There are lots of resources out there. I work with a nonprofit called Postpartum Support International. If you go to postpartum.net, we have a ton of resources. I personally facilitate a monthly free phone call for expectant dads, for new dads that are having some difficulty. Of course, there is psychotherapy out there. There are medication options. There are different kinds of support groups like the one that I run, but principally, don't just ignore it and think, oh, this is a typical part of new parenthood. If you're struggling, if you're suffering, it's not your fault, and there are plenty of things that we can do about it.
Very important information. Thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And people who want more information can go to postpartum.net. There are helpful resources, including your chat for dads, which, as you mentioned, you do on the first Monday of every month.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for getting us up early in San Diego once again for us this morning.